Okay, I'll go ahead and call to order the council meeting for Monday, March 31st. Start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Dave.
Dear Lord, we just thank you, Lord, for this meeting tonight, and we just pray, Lord, that you would just help us and give us wisdom as we do the business of the city and do the best to benefit the citizens of the city as well. We thank you, Lord, again, and we just need your wisdom tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I know there's one adjustment to the agenda before you, and that's just the name of our presenter for the 2024 audit, Ms. Neil Phillips. And we'll go ahead and start with that.
All right, I'm up. All right, I like that. Good evening. As he said, Neil Phillips from Jared Gilmore and Phillips prepared your independent audit for this year. So let's dive past the letters that are in there and dive straight into the audit report. Page 1, 2, and 3 is the independent audit report. The first paragraph talking about what we audited being the city of Pleasanton as of December 31st, 2024. Then there's a section in there called a basis for an adverse opinion. You do have what they call an adverse opinion on your financial statements because we are not following GAAP, General Accepted Accounting Principles. In the state of Kansas, we follow the Kansas cash basis and budget laws. So it's a regulatory basis of accounting. It's actually prescribed by statute that most cities do. There's a few cities that go ahead and follow GAAP, but in the back of those GAAP statements, they always have to put the KMAG statements, so they still end up getting some of this same information. Third paragraph down there is actually the most important paragraph, though. It is what they call an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting, which what that means to you is based on the testing we did, we feel like you have a materially accurate representation of what happened with the city and how you ended the city without any further modification needed. Unmodified. Kind of a weird term. The slang term would be a clean opinion. Again, that's the slang term. The official term is an unmodified opinion, but you have a clean opinion of the financial statements. The next section talks about the adverse opinion and the fact that we don't follow GAAP. Then at the bottom, there's a management's responsibilities and the fact that you're responsible for all the numbers that are in here, all the representations. The next section over on the top of the next page is auditor's responsibilities, and it talks about what our responsibilities with the numbers are. And then down at the very bottom of that page talks about the supplemental information, and it's telling you that we did audit everything that's in the little blue book here. So turn to page 4, where we spend the majority of our time. Page 4 is defined by statute is to show users at a glance that we're in compliance with the cash basis laws of the state of Kansas. You look at the fourth column over and you glance down through there. If any of those were negative, that would be a violation of Kansas statutes, cash basis statutes. As you glance down through there, you can see you ended positive in all your funds. I also like this statement. They kind of renamed things a few years ago. They made it a little bit simpler for me to understand, because like the very top line is the general fund. That's our monies that we can spend on our police, our fire, our general things that we do as a city. The next section, they list them as a special purpose funds. So those funds, even though somebody says, oh, we have $1.2 million in the bank, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? Well, special purpose funds are those dollars that are set aside for a specific purpose. Your special highway fund is one of the best ones to give an example of. Is every time somebody in the state of Kansas puts gas in their car, some tax goes to the state, and then it comes back to you based on population. You cannot spend that for anything but streets and alleys. We have a water line break, a sewer pump go out. We can't spend it on that. We can only spend it for streets and alleys. And each of those special purpose funds, you can kind of follow the description to know what the monies are set aside. And almost every one of them are bound by statute. Even like those reserve funds. You have an equipment reserve fund that you've set aside. That's considered a savings account of the city. And once you put funds in there, you can't just take them out and spend them for anything else. Even though they may have came from the general fund or utility fund, they have to stay in that account and be spent for equipment by statute. Then you got your capital projects funds, your bond and interest funds, and then the very last section is business funds. And they changed that name because they want everybody to realize that our utilities in the state of Kansas are created as a profit center, meaning there's an actual statute out there that says you can do anything you want with the monies once you pay all the bills of that utility fund. But what we've got to worry about in the state of Kansas is our infrastructure is getting older. A lot of times we've got to have money to help leverage. You know, we can go out and get a loan or bonds, but we've also got to have some matching funds to come in there. Or we have a sewer pump goes out, you know, a lift station. I had a city the other day, the lift station it must have been pretty deep in the ground because they told me it was going to be like 80 grand to replace this lift station. And they were calling me because they didn't have $80,000 in their sewer fund. So we were trying to figure out what to do. Those things are expensive, so we've got to try to build some cash up. But if you look at your very bottom line, you can see we started the year out with unencumbered cash of 1.1 million. We brought in 2.3, spent 2.2, so actually ended the year with cash, unencumbered cash. A lot of people refer to that as carryover or your reserves of $1,228,000. So actually up as a total, as a whole, up by a little bit. Then we add back encumbrances to get to a cash balance, and then you've got reconciled cash balances down right below that. Questions on that statement? Like I said, that one's the one we spend the majority of our time on. The words, footnotes starting on page 5. These are the words to back up the notes. Footnote number 1 is significant accounting policies. Just talks really about Kansas cash basis and budget laws. It's got some specific statutes about how we record property taxes, revenues, general funds. It's got some budgetary information on page 7. Where it gets into information specific to you is on page 8. And footnote number 2 talks about stewardship, compliance, and accountability. And the first thing we're going to talk about, and we're going to get to a budgeted statement here in just a minute, is we did have a violation of budget limits in the water utility fund and the sewer fund. So otherwise we went over the published amount. Usually there's some reasons for those, like you had some capital outlay, but we didn't end up having it budgeted in the 24 budget. Probably could have amended our budget by year end, but it didn't happen, and so we did go over budget. That is not a penal violation. Nobody's going to jail over it. The worst I've seen is the state of Kansas will send you a letter if you habitually do it. So, but we want to try to not overspend our funds, if at all possible. But you know, we had the water, we spent some capital outlay out of there, and then we had our sewer line project going on where we started, and we spent, what was it, $50,000, I think it was, working on that sewer project. Then we also talk about your bond payments in that second paragraph there. The state of Kansas, your loan payment or your bond payment is due on a certain day. The state of Kansas requires it to be in their account 20 days prior. So that means we can't pay it within those 20 days. It has to be paid 30 to 40 days prior to get it into their account. One of your accounts, I believe, I don't remember, 7 days. One of your payments was 7 days late to the statute, but not late for the payment date, if that makes sense. We didn't meet the 20-day requirement that the state has of it being there early. So we noted that, actually the state of Kansas sent us a letter because we are your auditors, so they know that, and so they send out a letter to say, hey, these entities did not meet the 20-day requirement last year. So we're required to put that in there to show that you were late. We just need to make sure we get that approved. Usually best to go ahead and approve that the month before. That way it's always going to make it there before that 20-day requirement.
And that was my fault because I never dealt with bond payments before, so I thought I was getting it in early.
Yep, you thought you were getting it early because of the due date. But unfortunately, there's another due date that's in there that the state imposes. Then we have deposits and investments. We are limited in the state of Kansas about how and where we can invest our money, and it just talks about our investments and our cash that's out there. We've got a footnote on capers. Actually, on page 9, I might point out that second paragraph up from the top. People get a little scared when they see that number. The state budgetary or the state caper system is in shortfall. Your portion of that shortfall is $519,000. That means if the state of Kansas said, okay, I'm no longer going to administer it, they gave you the money, and you were required to pay out your current employees, you would be estimated at $519,000 short of cash to be able to pay them. I would hope that the general fund would ever step up and pay that if we really, the state general fund would step up and pay that if it ever came to that situation where they handed it out to all the entities. But I will point out that in a GAAP audit, that shows up as a liability in the financial statements. In your audit, it's just a footnote disclosure and didn't show up as an obligation or a funded obligation otherwise. Page 10 is a list of the long-term debt. You've got your bonds. You can see you've got 4 of them there. And then you've got some financing leases. Used to be called capital leases. They changed that name 2 years ago to financing leases. It's just another way that we finance some projects and equipment. The next couple of pages has the payout of that. And I'm not going to sit and read each of these footnotes to you. What I'm going to have you do is turn to page 17 in the interest of time. Page 17 is schedule number 1, and this is to show users at a glance that we're in compliance with the budget laws of the state of Kansas. As you glance down through there, you can see there's where it shows the water fund and the sewer fund were over the budgeted amount. And by how much. As you can see, our other funds were under budget. Then the rest of the booklet here is the by fund information. And this follows the state budgetary format. So like the very top line is your ad valorem taxes or your property taxes. And since we audited last year, we're able to put 2-year comparison in here for you now. Like the very top line, property taxes in 2023, you collected $343,000 of property taxes. In 2024, you collected $391,000. And the budget is how much you levied of $395,000. That means that your taxpayers paid all the $3,943 of their property taxes during this last year. But the hope is that $3,943 will come in on the next line down, which says delinquent taxes. As you can see, in 2023, we collected quite a bit of the 22 monies. People were a little late in 22 back in there. But you can see 24, it was down to 833. Next year, we're hoping it's going to be $3,948 or $43. But you've got all your funds here with side-by-side comparison to where the monies were last year as they come into this year. Your general fund, if you glance down through there and you're just looking for the reason why the general fund is down, you're going to see that on page 21, you put sales tax money. You know, your sales tax, you end up putting some money over streets now. Where before, some of that general fund, or some of that sales tax money was in the general fund rather than the streets fund. So you're collecting money to build up there to work on some street projects. So we all know that's very expensive. All right, I don't know that there's any other fund we ought to really point out unless you specifically have questions. Becky knows where all the numbers came from, so if she can't answer a question for you, we'd be glad to try to answer it for you as you glance through the rest of that. But while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about these other 2 letters that are in here. There's one with a date at the top. That letter, that statement letter that was in there, that one with the date at the top is what we call our presentation letter. With it, if we had any problems in the past, any difficulties encountered, we would have orally came to talk to you. Well, we get legal involved. Of course, now we have to put it in writing to say we had no difficulties encountered. We didn't have any disagreements with management. We had no problems encountered while we were doing your audit. Now, I'm kind of making light of that letter because it is a letter to those charged with governments. When I hit the print button. That's what I'm printing. The letter is named, a letter to those charged with government. So it's got good, important information that you do read through it, but it is boilerplate because we didn't have any of those kind of situations that needed to be discussed. Then the next couple pages of that is where the numbers went from where you last seen them to how they show up in the audit book. And then the very last few pages of that is what they call the management representation letter. We're now required to give you a copy of that. That's the representations that have been made between the auditors and management. I always like to refer to it as the reminder letter, because as management read through it, they should have talked to us about everything that was in there. No material lawsuits, no material conflicts of interest, no problems with the IRS, no problems with the Department of Labor. Again, I'm kind of making light of it. It's a 4-page letter, but it's boilerplate. There was no added language because we had something that we needed to make sure that we disclosed or discussed during the audit. The other letter that is in there is what used to be called a management letter. They now call it a SAS 119 letter. It's basically a letter to disclose to you any internal control issues that we have or that we came across when doing your audit. You're going to see the first thing that we list out there is what we call financial statement preparation. The upper level doesn't consider us small entities, and I say us because we audit 45 small cities, and this actually applies to the majority of them, is your financial statements have to be prepared in-house by somebody that knows what the rules are and if there's a change. It's not that I don't think management could do it with some education and some help, but you pay us to write your financial statements and put them in the book. So we have to disclose the fact that you are paying us to type your financial statements for you and put them in the book after we do the audit work. The other thing that's on there's 2 other items on the next page. The first one is segregation of duties. It's just a reminder to you that you're a small city. Things can happen. We have a city that was over a little closer to Chanute. We can talk about it because we convicted her. She stole $110,000 over a 2-year period. We didn't catch her the first year, we caught her the second year. But she stole $110,000, and all $110,000 had 5 signatures on it, which tells me nobody was looking at what they were signing. It's important, your name means something. Per se, the buck stops with you. You ever heard that? The buck stops with you. You are ultimately responsible for the city's funds. It's important that you look at what you're approving, what you're signing. We do have small staff, so it's important that we do watch over. Not that we micromanage, but we do watch over and be skeptical. It's called professional skepticism. Because if we didn't trust our employees, they shouldn't work for us. But we should be professionally skeptical. The other thing that we noted on there is the fire department has a donation account that's out there that's got our federal ID number on it, and it's city donations. All bank accounts should be ran through city council, and then all receipts and disbursements should follow your policies and procedures. I give the example of I gave you a $10,000 note, or I gave the fire department a $10,000 donation. And it came about that somebody stole that $10,000. I'm going to go after the fire department, but I'm actually coming after the city. I'm not coming after, the fire department is not a separate entity. They're coming back to you as a citizen because that money was gone or something happened to that money. It's important that we follow internal controls. I know the fire department's gonna say it's a pain in their behind because they're gonna have to follow a couple more steps to spend the money, and it's a donation that the citizens wanted spent this way. That's okay. We just need to follow the proper channels and get some controls in there so that it's not misused, if that makes any sense. We feel like that's an important step in that control process. Questions of me?
Any questions?
Winning lottery numbers?
What's that?
Winning lottery numbers?
Yep, that would help. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I actually truly had somebody tell me that one time. I was having a meeting in their office with them, and I said, well, what's our plan to get out of this financial crisis? And she goes, She was dead serious when she looked me in the eye. She goes, I play the lottery every Thursday, and I'm really hoping that one day I'm gonna hit. I was like, oh my gosh.
Mr. Mayor.
What to do now? What to say now?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we accept the audit report prepared by Jared Gilmore and Phillips for the 2024 budget.
2024 audit.
2024 audit.
Sorry.
It's been motioned to accept the audit. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve consent agenda. Any questions, comments, discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimous. City Administrator and Departmental Reports.
The only two things I have is, the city has been mowing ditches which really aren't ours to mow. And we would like to go ahead and notify those property owners of the ditches that will not be doing it this year. There's a map over there with the, areas that we have been mowing highlighted. And I'm not too sure where the procedure started that we mow these other places, but, that's what the council would like. We can start that because they are getting ready to start mowing season.
Can we set up a way for them to come in and ask for us to help them? Because I know some of these ditches are almost vertical.
Well, the ones that they have been mowing are, I don't think that the reason that they're being mowed is because of they're deep. There it shows which ones that they've done.
Okay.
If you wanna look at it.
But I know that, the trip going out of town for Snow Hill, I know that one was a big issue. I'm gonna do that.
I know that there were some that they had been mowing in the past, but they didn't mow last year. But like right here, there's no reason we should be mowing Casey's and Oaks's.
Yeah, I agree with that. I could have swore there was some down here.
There was at one time, I have a list, but John said that they had not mowed those in a couple of years,
Okay.
so.
So are we good with notifying the people that we're not gonna be mowing those anymore, so they cover their responsibility?
I think that's fine.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
And the other thing that I have is, if you guys approve the new code book later on in the meeting, it'll be published and go into effect next Wednesday. One of the things is we're going to allow the golf carts and the ATVs and special vehicles like that on the street. We did go ahead and order the stickers, but this late in the year, I would like to have them go ahead and come in and get the permits and start it, but to let them not charge them the $20 for it until next year. So to kind of give us time to get into the procedure and they'll be aware of what they need for the permits and stuff. If that is okay with you guys.
Oh, are we giving out the stickers then?
We have the stickers ordered. We're planning on getting them started at the first of the year, but since it took longer, rather than to try to do some kind of prorating, just to let them use them, and then at the first of the year, next year, they'll come in and then they'll have to buy the permit. And they'll get a different color sticker every year. So
What if we did like $1 to recoup the cost of the stickers?
that's totally up to you guys. I just didn't think it was fair to charge them the $20 and it's not even available until
And the stickers can't cost more than 50 cents, right?
they didn't cost much now.
I'd say $1 just to, you're gonna have to pay for it either way, so $1 at least, you're showing that you're gonna follow the rules.
How would you like us to enforce that? For now, anyway.
For a little bit, you're gonna have to give people time to get used to it. They haven't had to do it. Just notify them if you see them. Hey, go to City Hall.
Yeah, kinda like we did.
But do you want us to do that for the entire year, or
I think,
and start next year, or what do you want us?
I mean, I think that you can give them the warning citation tickets,
Yeah.
and that way you at least have it recorded so that you can follow up on repeat offenders.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Nobody else has any issue?
Okay, do we want an official motion for that? Or- Okay.
Okay, for codes, they gave out 6 notices, they sent 5 letters, they have 29 open cases, 2 closed cases, and 2 tickets. Dogs in pound are 9, and she has given out 2 tickets in the last 2 weeks.
And those dogs are going to be transferred to a rescue, all of them on Wednesday.
Okay. Police department, 100 traffic stops, 31 citations, 7 arrests, 20 case reports, 7 drug cases, 2 felony, 5 misdemeanor. Ambulance calls 8, and that's about it.
Becky, is there any update on the tubes coming for the 10th Street project?
John checked on them today and they still were not here, but he hoped to have them here this week.
Okay, any other questions on departmental reports? Anything? Okay, moving on, mutual aid agreements with Lynn County Fire.
Before we do that, I have some information. Can you pass that down? You keep one, or I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
We need to seriously discuss what the ISO is for the fire department, what would happen if we would lose the ISO, and if the city can actually afford to keep its fire department. State statutes 193605 and 193606 I provided you guys with. Also, Randy had been up here a few weeks ago and spoke about possible fines because the department is only a 4-man department. It cannot respond to every call. So where the rural fire department is having to respond, they need to have some sort of compensation. So I asked him to prepare me a couple bills, and he went with all different types. One was a 4-hour call out, one was a 2-hour, and one was a 1-hour. Those are some of the costs that the county has been incurring. Also, I went and got the fire department agreement between Mound City Fire when they dissolved their fire department and how they did that for their petition for the commission and stuff. And then I put together some things about the ISO that the citizens and the council needs to know. The Insurance Service Office is a third-party independent company that manages all of the insurance liability for the cities. That's based off water, number of firefighters you have, response times, and things like that. Here in Pleasanton, if we were to be inspected by the state or we were to be inspected by the ISO who does come down and do inspections, we would fail badly. Not just because of the fire department, but because for the last 2 years, we've had several fire hydrants that were not addressed that are broke. As much as high as 17 were non-working. When John took over, there are 9. He's got parts ordered, but we have to have the water to be able to get to the fires. So it's not just the fire department here, it's the whole totality of everything that has to be met in order to keep our ISO at a 5. The average ISO for the state of Kansas is a 6. Last year, when I got my homeowner's insurance, I had them figure out, because if we do not voluntarily give up our fire department and they come in and shut us down, our ISO would automatically go to a 10. I have a medium range house. It's not real expensive, it just kind of falls in the median. So my house insurance, when I had them refigured of what it would cost me to do a 10, it went up $1,000 to $1,200 for 1 year for the house insurance coverage. It would go up based on how much your property is worth based on your property taxes. If we did ask the county to take over our fire department, how that would incur and how that would look with our budget and things, the budgeted money for the fire department would then be discussed between the county commissioners council and our council. And Randy has expressed to me that he would also be interested in our equipment. How would we pay for it going forward would be in the years to come. It would be based off of the mill levy. Randy gave me that number. I went and spoke to Janet Klingo. I figured my house again, average, it was right at $20. If your property taxes is lower than what I pay, it would be less. If it's higher than what I pay, it would be more, but nothing more than $50 per resident household a year. I did not check into what a business would be. Bill could probably tell you about that because he's very up on his insurance and his taxes. But it's very important. It's serious. We really have to consider it. If we do not, then we are putting every single residence and business in a financial kidnapping. What's in the packet is there's 2 different articles on ISOs, what their requirements are, what they look for in the fire department and within the city. And just for further information, what other places are doing around the county, I spoke to other fire departments. I spoke to the fire department that I used to be on. They have 100 more people than we do here in Pleasanton, and they have 15 firefighters on, and they have more applications to have 23. They can go up as high as 28. We have 22 firefighters here in Pleasanton that Randy has recruited and have on our volunteer fire department. Lacey also has 22. Mound City has 15 and Prescott has 7. The Lacey Fire Department has between 12 and 15, and the Lynn Valley Police Department or Fire Department has between 10 and 12.
So my suggestion would be, since not everybody reads the paper, not everybody has a computer, because there's and everything, to have a town hall meeting so everybody knows what is actually going on and, with the council. That would be my suggestion.
That's why
And then my suggestion would be also, when the water bills, if, Candy and Nancy could send out a letter to everybody that gets a water bill, for it to be done. So they will know that there's gonna be a town hall meeting.
what they're seeing now is nobody understands that it's not our fire department responding to all these fire calls. They see a fire truck and they automatically think that it's Pleasanton's fire department.
I understand
when
that.
it's not, it's the counties. So that's why we are broadcasting live, is that this is open meeting, open record.
But I still would recommend a town hall meeting.
Also, the statute requires it, just so you know. So
Oh.
if you guys were to make the decision to, dissolve your fire department into the county's fire department, that requires, 20 days notice in advance of that, city council meeting, in order to be
Right.
able to do that.
Okay.
So that is required anyways.
How many firefighters, Randy, does Blue Mountain have?
I think close to 10. And the other thing on the statute is, anything that you do has to be done before budget year, July 1st of this year. If you do it after July 1st, it will not take effect this year. If you guys have questions on the ISO, I can explain that. If you guys have anything like that.
Ballpark, how many calls do you have inside of Pleasanton on an annual basis?
So you're talking med calls and fires both?
Fire.
Last year, I believe it was 12 fire incidents that they were phased out to. That does not include wrecks. That's whether it's a smoking outlet or a full-blown structure fire. So, total calls for last year, med calls and everything included, it was like 33 or 36 for Pleasanton. On the ISO, something that you guys, just some more information. To get your ISO numbers, minimum, you have to have 2 engines running to that fire. They're supposed to be staffed with 6 people. Your ISO right now is not a City of Pleasanton ISO number, that's a Lynn County ISO number. That's something that they done, last time they done the ISO was everything went under Lynn County. And that was to help the cities out. With that, when they done that, they done the automatic aid agreement, which expired in 2018. This issue has not been something new. This is something that I can find records that the last administration was keeping track of clear back in 2019, 2020. So I don't know if it was just the inability to come forward and say, hey, there's an issue, or bring light to it, but that's far back as I can find records as far as they were watching this issue.
So do we want to set a date to hear from the people for the decision and such for the fire department?
I think that's probably a really good idea.
I'd also like to hear from commission on what it's gonna cost, what the stipulations are, so forth.
Randy, can you elaborate on that and how Mound Cities work theirs?
I'm not sure, that was something that took place prior to before I was here. And that's something I spoke to a couple of councilmen about, is it would be finishing out this year. That's something that I would probably ask the commissioners to negotiate with the city council on to finish out this year. If that was something that was gonna happen and go in effect where we could start collecting taxes January 1st. The January 1st would just, then we'd put the fire tax on all the citizens.
But like I said, and Angie alluded to it, there's stuff that we could use, that we could absorb and say, hey, this year, we're gonna do that for the equipment and move forward from there. I don't think it would be an issue, but that's something that, if you got to that point, we would wanna discuss with the commissioners.
Okay, thank you. So we would need at least 20 days out for that, so that would put it at what day
If
then?
that, if you would potentially be having a town hall and voting on the same day, then you need it to be 20 days. And since the deadline is July 1st, like he said,
We kinda
it
need to
seems like you
move.
probably need to go ahead and vote on that day after you hear from the city.
Okay,
And that's just to petition the commissioners. They still have to have a hearing on it as well after that 20 days at one of their meetings.
Right.
yeah,
And the hope would be that in the interim time that you all could have some informal discussions with them to see if it's something that they would be amenable to.
so we would want that to happen this
It needs to be like
2 council
two
meetings
council
out?
meetings from now. No, it can't be the next one, it'd have to be the following one.
And Becky, is there a way that Candy and Nancy could send out letters so people will know?
If you want, that's what you want. I mean, we can post it and put notices in the notice to be in the paper, and we can post it and you still want to send letters out.
I don't
When will the next water bill go out?
End of the month, it
The
just,
end of the month,
Yeah, it'll be another month,
Oh, that's too far out.
yeah.
so it would have to be a special mailing, so.
So are we wanting a special mailing then?
I think-
Postcard?
I think that
Meeting.
way the people
I
will
mean,
know.
it'll have to be a letter in the envelope because we're not set up to.
The postcards.
I think that way the people will know. That's just me.
Okay, everybody else's opinion? So we'll do that then, set it out for 2 council meetings from now.
What would the date be?
April,
It'll be May.
it would be April 21st.
Well, we can't get it published.
So 2, 4, it would be the 28th, April 28th?
Today is March 31st.
Yes, so we skip the 7th,
14th.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it'd be
I
the
guess.
28th.
28th.
And do you want to have this at the community center?
Yeah.
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 Best.
Yep.
Let me make sure that it's available that night before you set that.
April 28th.
Maybe she said.
Yeah.
the sample bill you did, Randy, for 1357 Magnolia,
Yes,
is that a pretty routine?
1357 is our address. What's the estimate for the?
It's the
right-
$8,000 one, is right here.
Yeah,
So that was for a,
Grass fire.
grass fire turned into a structure fire.
Hmm.
That burnt, it was up north end of Kansas, it burnt towards the clinic. It was a large fire, we were there quite a while. And the rates on the trucks we just went with FEMA rates, that's how we bill,
that's how
like,
the numbers
on
come up.
anything would be FEMA rates.
Was April good, the 28th?
The other thing, if you look at those very closely, you're gonna see one of those bills, well, 2 of them, they're gonna be, paid per call. Way we work is, it's $35 per call for the firefighter until they reach 3 hours and they go to the hourly. And so that 4 hours, then it's broke down hourly what it is. Because their hourly rate's just the 35 divided by 3. But that's why that bill's a little bit different, because that was 4 hours, so I just broke it down per hourly, where all the other ones are per call. rates.
I don't remember seeing a fire tax in the levy structure for the other cities.
So
It's
the
towards
other,
the end of it.
we don't tax other cities. If they have their own fire department, there's no fire tax on that.
I didn't see one in Mound City.
So Mound City, they're taxed. The residents of Mound City pay the 1.65 mill
Mills.
levy for the tax, the fire protection tax. Because the fire department here, it's a fire district, and we're our own taxing entity. We don't work out of the general fund like the city fire department. So we collect our own tax, and it has to stay in the fire department. So we can't take it and use it for roads or anything like that. At the end of the year, everything that we carry over, we put in our special equipment. That's where we buy fire trucks with.
So currently Mound City's at 1.6.
Yeah, mills. And everywhere in the county except for Pleasanton, Lynn Valley, and Lacey pays the fire tax. So it doesn't matter if it's Blue Mound, Mountain City, Corker, they all have that fire tax.
But it is a 1.6 pretty much across the board.
Yeah, it's the same. It's everywhere in the county it's that 1.6 mils. So it just goes off value of your property line.
Yeah, I know, but while they're in an uncontrolled mode of doubling property values in valuation this year, that number gets pretty exorbitant fairly quickly.
It's $20 for,
Depends on
it
the
depends.
value of the property.
It depends on the value of the property. Mine is pretty mainstream. I'm right in the middle of where my property value is up to any other house in
What I'm
the
saying,
state.
if our recent tax notices showed a reevaluation, and in some cases, property values doubled.
Okay, but that would be a lot cheaper still than having your house insurance go up from a 5 to 10. Because for me, that was a $1,200, a $1,000 to $1,200 jump.
Yeah.
I would much rather pay a $20 to $30.
Oh, I agree
property
that,
tax.
that the county is it's the only reasonable solution for our problem. My problem is with valuation of property.
And we can, as a fire district, we can go up to 5 mils legally before we have to have a special election. If you look, compare ours to other fire taxes in the state, we are pretty low. Most of them are average over 2 to 3. So, and I don't see anything in the near future that would cause us to raise ours. We're going.
Well, considering the fact that Lynn County taxes are 3 times those of Johnson County, I mean, we're already overtaxed.
That's property taxes.
That's above his pay grade.
I mean, and just for example, like you take those 30 calls for the year, and even the call the other day that there was 7 firemen and 2 trucks on it, that was almost $600. You take that for 30 calls throughout the year,
I ran some rough numbers. If we had an average bill, it would be $110,000 a year that we'd get billed if we didn't have one.
I'm afraid to see my payroll for March just because last year at this time the fire district had run 126 calls or something like that, and this year we're at 222, and so yeah, so just kind of give you an idea. And the other thing is on the fire district, if we get paid to something in Pleasanton, because it's going to be a question. We're sending 3 stations. So we're sending for here Lacey, Mound City, and probably Prescott, because any more on a structure fire, we're going to page out for extra stations. Our ISO is not rated off your fire hydrants. So I don't care if they work or not. Ours is for what we can haul water-wise, and we have the equipment and the trucks to haul that water, and that's how they qualified our ISO rating. So. And your ISO isn't just your city limits. Your ISO actually extends outside the city limits, is what you guys And so you're not only affecting what's inside city limits, but the people outside that. I know there is legislature to change that, where the cities can only control what's inside city limits and they lose that ability. I don't know if it passed or not, hadn't heard from, but in the fire chief's world, that's one thing that would really affect us, because like Pleasanton, you would lose a lot of tax money if that changed. So, if anybody has questions on any of the ISO leading up to this or anything, please feel free to stop by the office or give me a call. I have no problem explaining or giving you the information or putting you in the direction that you need. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
So we'll proceed with that on the 28th and go from there. Update on water at the ball field.
I put that on there because I was thinking you were meeting with them tonight, so.
Oh, yeah.
You do have a meeting with them in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
So.
Yep. So have a meeting with them in 2 weeks. We will find out what's needed to try to get water over the ball field. In respects to that also, I have been in contact with a few people, and Clinton that's kind of running the ball this summer and all, and he's working with some people, and the chamber are wanting to get involved in seeing about businesses and so forth, helping fund some of the upgrades to the ball field itself and kind of maintain that a little bit better and fix it up some more to help with that also.
On our work day that we're getting ready to have with the school?
The school has some people that are set to go help with the ball field also. Yep.
And that's on the 30th of April,
Yes,
right?
that's April 30th.
It's a Wednesday.
Yep, that'll be serve day, and it's a Wednesday, and there'll be people all over the place.
And if anyone gets any complaints about the bleachers being missing, the school has borrowed them like they did last year, and they will be back in place before all season starts.
Yes.
I remember it well.
Adopt ordinance number 2059, the codification of the code book. Our code book is complete with all of the adjustments and everything. So,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2059 in the code book.
Did we send out a copy of that to the council members? Because I haven't seen anything since months from now, or months ago.
Not since
the
we
last.
made all the changes and we went through in here and made them, then I sent them to them, but I did not send out copies again.
So motion is on the table
I'll second.
and seconded to adopt ordinance 2059 for codification of the code book with all the changes that have been submitted. Any discussion?
So this will be online for somebody to look at it.
Yes.
On Wednesday, you said?
It'll be Wednesday.
I won't try to get it in this week's paper, so it'll go with next Wednesday's publication date, and once it's published, then we can put it online, and it will,
Okay.
anytime there's a change, it'll be updated within 48 hours online.
Easily accessible anywhere. Any other questions? All in favor? Passes unanimous.
Yes, it's like the biggest thing.
After a year of
14 months for
Going.
a 3-month project.
Okay, open bids for hayground lease. We have one bid.
We have a bid from Dennis Claiborne from Fort Scott, Kansas for $4,105. and that is for the hay ground on the east side of Pleasanton. I'm guessing the east side of the lake.
He is the one that has hated the last several
Mhm.
years.
How much is it for again?
$4,000.
$4,105.
Do we have some more parcels that we're still waiting on bids for?
There is some on the west side, but no one has bid on it. And I talked to Dennis last year and he said that it is so grown up with shrub and stuff that it's no good for haying anymore. So the guys are gonna try to get a start on it and keep it bush hog to see if we can get it back down.
Is there a motion to,
Make a motion to approve the hay ground bid of $4,105.
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded to accept the bid for the hay grounds for $4,105 from Dennis Claiborne. Any discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimous. I have a request from Skylar Gabrini to close Main Street from Broad to 9th Street to June 14th from 9 a.m. to noon for cars and coffee event.
She's the one that has had the car shows up there several times the past few years.
Make a motion to approve closing Main Street from Broad to 9th on June 14th from 9 to noon.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to allow for the closing of Main Street on June 14th from 9 to noon. Skylar Cabrini's car and coffee event. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimous. Donation request from East Central Kansas Area Agency.
Becky, have we given to them before?
Not that I could find, and I think Michelle talked to someone and has more information about it.
I do. I talked to the lady about it, and I just said, my understanding is that the county pays for it, so please help, with more information. She said one year is for March, 1 week. They send out all these letters to everybody. You said you got one. And all they're doing is just asking for donations. She said, if you want to donate, you can. If you don't, you can't. You don't have to. I said, so we donate. How much do you want? What's just an idea. She said, I'm not going to tell you. Whatever you want, and if you don't want to, okay. I said, where's the money go towards to? And she said, it goes towards the meals that the people
Our county?
for the whole Dane County and everything. And so she said, for the month of February, for one meal, they got $2.05 for just from one person. She was just giving an average. And she said, and they deliver them to homes, 37 cents in February for one meal. Because people don't give. It's a donation. You can donate, but the suggestion donation is $4 and everything. So, and I'm like, okay. So then I asked the lady who runs the Lynn County thing, the Pleasanton one here, Nancy. I said, how many people do you feed in the home? She said 19 to 20. She said to eat in, it's 13 to 16 and everything. And she said the donation would be cost of people that don't pay, that cannot afford to pay. So.
What does the county pay?
Exactly. The county pays for.
They pay for the meals, because they
Yes,
were talking about
it's
that
all-
in the county commissioners.
It is
meetings.
all figured by how many drivers we have, how many in-home, how many we have in
Yeah.
terms of senior citizens. That is what's figured, and that is what the county pays.
And
So-
I tried to find it out today, but Ally said she didn't have the information, and the lady that does it over there that took David's place wasn't there. Won't be there all week. I tried to find out what the county paid.
Well, it's
so-
an
It would just be-
extraordinary amount of money.
Yeah,
It's
we pay
like-
off the butt.
Yeah. And
So,
Kim had actually offered to do it, and the county said no, they were gonna go, and
We
she could
could
do
have
it
done it
for.
cheaper running it out of the jail. cooking the meals and having somebody still deliver them, and the county still paid the number that they wanted for Meals on Wheels.
And I was there last year and it was like several thousand over what you were saying.
And I asked that lady, I said, how much does the county pay? And she said, that's not what I don't, have that information. But she just said that, if you wanna donate, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. She just said that they have to send it out the 1 week in March.
So the numbers
So-
that she gave you were just donations that came in,
No,
or
it's
was it
just
like
what-
per meal donation?
Yeah, per meal.
Per meal donations?
Yeah.
Okay. So several people might be giving and several people might not, and it
Yeah,
just
she
kind of
said a
leveled
lot
out
of
at
people,
that.
like if you go into the homes, a lot of people sometimes cannot afford to pay, so we just,
But the
They
And
county's
shouldn't
paying
have
for
to
it.
pay for it
The
because
county's
that's what the
paying
county
for it.
pays for.
yeah, nobody should have to pay for it, but when you go down here to the senior citizen and like if you would go, it's like $7. But if,
That's because she's not on
right.
the list of normal ones.
no,
Right.
but if the senior citizen people like Nancy and them, they're suggested $4 to
But
pay.
this is what we're saying, is the county takes every
I
senior
know.
citizen and figures it up and then pays that amount of money.
I know.
So I think we should hold off on donating any money to that because the county's already been taking care of that. If the county needed help, then they could ask us for help and then I would consider it, but
Yeah, so I was shocked when it
I
come
would
out
say go
too.
to jail.
So,
Okay. Jacqueline, did you have anything?
Yes, last time you all asked me about the stop sign at 6th and Tucker Road and the manual and uniform traffic control devices does not have rules regarding removing,
You're right.
does not have rules regarding removing traffic control devices. However, the rules regarding placing traffic control devices requires, quote, engineering judgments. So the decision regarding the appropriate roadway control must be based on engineering judgment. And so to the extent that we don't have a traffic engineer employed in the city, we could see if there's one at the county or neighboring county who would be willing to lend their engineering judgment. But in the absence of that, I certainly can't recommend that you all make any changes to the traffic control devices unless you can rely on an engineering judgment. So I would not recommend that you make any changes to the traffic control devices without an engineer's opinion.
Okay. Aaron, did you have anything?
Yeah, continuing on with the traffic devices, Justin, I had a citizen approach me saying that Park Street is, getting people doing like 50. There's a whole bunch of kids near Park and Palm area. And I talked to the part-timer, I can't remember his name, and he ran some traffic over there, I saw that. But if you could keep an eye out on that area. He requested a stop sign at Park and Palm, but I don't think that that'd be feasible.
Not because it's all the way through, so.
Yeah. But yeah, he said that by the time you get to Palm Street, they're doing 40, 50 miles an hour, so
We can do that.
appreciate it. Other than that, I'll get nothing.
Kimberly?
The only thing I have is I also had somebody come to me about Park Street, about you guys running radar there. They're happy with that. They want that because people are speeding down that road. But there's lack of speed limit signs, so nobody knows are they supposed to be going 20 or 30. So we need to look into.
So we don't need to have speed limit signs there. The
No.
state statute actually posts the speed that have unposted roads. Any road in the city that has no post is 30 miles an hour. Any road out in the county that's not posted is 55 miles an hour.
I know that, but I feel like by our park we need to have that slower.
Yeah, I mean,
We got
I've
kids
talked to
running
the mayor
across the
about it,
road.
and it's not an issue with putting up signs. It's just we don't have to if we
I
don't.
mean, this person, they did not want you to think they were upset you were there. They like that. But I do think we need signs up, and I think we need to lower it, especially by the park. Kids come running across, excited, don't pay attention.
No, I get
We
that.
don't want a kid smacked over there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we
need
have to
look
talk
in-
public
So would that
works.
be adding the park area to a lower speed limit?
As far as the speed zone, yeah, that's not necessarily the same thing as a traffic control device. Traffic control device is stop sign, yield sign, you know, overhead, that kind
lower
of
a
thing.
speed limit, you have to do a traffic study, which would then take away from Tristan's time. You have to sit out there and do an actual traffic study, which doesn't have to be forwarded up to the state.
I believe so, yeah. We've
I mean,
never done an actual traffic study that's ever been sent to the state because we didn't have a reason to change it. So we can do one, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to send anything to the state unless it's the speeding or people going slower is excessively under or over the speed limit itself.
yeah, I'm fine with 30 miles an hour on Park Street. I think that's reasonable. I mean, 5 miles an hour isn't gonna make that much of a difference. If we try and go down to 25.
I would go with 20, not 25.
Also, by state statute, the lowest you can go is 20 miles an hour. That's why the school zone had to be changed from 15 to 20. So if you want us to do that, I mean, we can, and see if there is an excessive difference between the speed limit there is now and it being lower or higher.
Would you be sitting out there in your patrol car?
I mean, we have handheld radars, we can find another vehicle, as long as we can have a way of hooking up the radar.
Yeah, because they're gonna automatically slow down if they see the patrol car.
Well, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right,
The
well-
idea is not to
Right.
issue tickets,
It's
but to
not,
make
we
our
don't
kids
normally
not
need
get
them
run
doing
over
it when Tristan's sitting there. We need them doing it
all the time.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if Tristan's sitting there trying to do a traffic study, they're gonna automatically slow down. So during the traffic study, we need an unmarked car so that he can get an accurate, if we need a speed limit reduction sign. So how long does a study usually take?
The last time we did one, it was two days, and we did it 4 hours total, and we averaged out the speed, which was on the north end of Maine, and people were complaining about how they wanted to lower it, and it ended up that they were only like 3 miles an hour over on average. So, I mean, it's however long you want us to do it, but at least 4 hours, give or take.
Did they say when the traffic is the busiest, of when there's being a problem?
I would guess around the time people are going to school or work and coming home, it's probably gonna be typical
You
traffic.
could sit one day in the morning, a school morning, and the next
Most,
day.
most of that traffic that's zinging along there is about 5 a.m., between 5 and 6:15.
Well, I mean, if you would do from 5 to 8 one morning and the next evening 3 to
He could sit in his
7.
house and do it.
I put a mirror in your back door, and you can do it.
But no, we can do 5 a.m. to 9 or whatever, and then another day do 2 to 6, and see what happens on those 2 different times.
Can you have it before the next council meeting so we can make a decision quicker?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Rochelle?
No.
Bill? Angie?
Nope.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
A second.
All in favor?
Hey.
We are adjourned.